Hey there guys, it's DMO73 bringing you a commentary for this is round 6 of Caturday. Unfortunately, we had some recording issues for the first couple minutes of this game 1 between Chris and Sia, so we are just jumping right in. I don't quite know what life totals are at right now, so I'm just going to go ahead and go with commentary from this point, and then we'll bring the life totals up for games 2 and 3. So we have Chris Durand on the left running an Odd Grimm, and Sia Yang running a red-white Burn Grimm that he named Bloody Grimm. Pretty interesting idea. Operates kind of on the same standards of Odd Grimm, but instead of running the odd mechanic, it just runs a lot more burn cards to try to finish off the game. So pretty interesting matchup. So we'll go from, let's see what happens. So we have a quick tell a fairy tale from Sia. This lets him search his deck for any fairy tale, put it into play, trigger its enter effect, usually getting something like Pied Piper of Hamelin to lock down, start locking down cards. At this point in time, good call to lock down the Oz. It's pretty much the only heavy hitter right now, and if he wants to swing in with that Oz, it's the only thing that can really have any risk to get stopped. So as I said, we have that 600 swing in. He won't be able to kill it, but he goes ahead and has to deal with the block by sacrificing his Cheshire Cat there. Really good play by Sia to lock down that Oz to be able to swing in. Following it up with a Tinkerbell, which is now going to be an 800 creature on board. So again, having that good high defense blocker to be able to deal with whatever Chris can play next turn. So this matchup's very interesting in the fact that both decks only run 2 colors and run a lot of basic stones. So things like Split Heaven and Earth aren't necessarily as effective as they would be in other matchups, simply because both players are utilizing a lot of basic stones. So we see that Rapid Decay from Chris to try to deal with the Glinda. I think Rapid Decay right now is probably one of the best cards to deal with Glinda. I mean, Thunder is the same, but Thunder also can be used during your opponent's turn. So I think Rapid Decay is a much better use of your turn to be able to save Thunders for later. Then we see that Dreams of Wonderland come out with that Dreams of Wonderland off the top. So bouncing that Hamelin back to hand. It came a little too late in the fact that Sia still has 4 mana going to 5, so he might be able to pump to hardcast that Hamelin next turn, but it does give him the ability to be able to swing in with that March Hare and get 500 damage, and then him play his own Glinda to settle up just in case there might be a spell that comes out next turn. So a lot of Glinda from these both players. I noticed that Chris likes to make use of Glinda a lot more than I've seen other Odd Grimm players do, which is fine. I think it works absolutely, especially when you're playing against a burn deck like this and you want to get in that extra damage. So as I said, yep, there's that 5 cost Hamelin. He's going to be able to go ahead and just lock down that Glinda and then swing in for a free 600 damage with Tinkerbell, and then another 600 damage with the Oz that was up. So we're moving into this next turn. We have that Oz back up and ready to go. Glinda being locked down isn't terrible because he can still access that spell cancel ability. Not that it matters right now with his opponent being completely tapped down, but it just means that Glinda isn't totally useless even if she's locked down by that Hamelin. Another Dreams of Wonderland goes off. We see Hamelin get bounced back by that Duel of Truth reveal. We're going to see a quick trade, and then March Hare taking out that Tinkerbell. So very good play by Durand, leaving himself open with a lot of mana and being able to kind of clear the board. So we'll have to see what happens now with Sia going up to 6 mana, so he can hardcast that Hamelin and still have a spell option. Yep, as I said, we're going to see that Hamlin quickly come into play. Oh, a Blazer. Was not expecting that in the slightest. So Blazer's going to try to swing in. But Durand's going to have that answer in the form of another Dreams of Wonderland. So 5 mana just gets whiffed, essentially. Very good play. Yeah, and reminding him that Dreams of Wonderland is going to actually get removed from the game because of last known information with Blazer. Passing to Durand with that 1 mana up. Duel of Truth is going to come into the hand. One thing to keep in mind is there's no actual need to keep that that card up on his deck. I think it's just so that Chris doesn't have to keep revealing it, but you don't have to keep it revealed. Swinging in for that quick 1100 damage with the Blazer. Seeing another 5 from the March Hare, but in response, we're gonna see that Thunder come out. He doesn't want to have to deal with that, so he's in an interesting position here where he can just lose the March Hare, or he can banish with the Glinda. Again, reminding about the cards getting removed from game with Blazer, and then passing to his opponent. He wants to keep that Glinda up as possible for as long as possible. He doesn't want to potentially risk losing it. So he decides not to swing in. Very good play. So we know we have a Blazer in hand. We know we have a Hamlet's Pied Piper in hand. Looks like we see a Purifying Fire. If I knew what the life point totals were, I'd be able to kind of talk about what I think Bloody Grimm is going to be trying to do here, whether or not it's time to switch to Burn. But unfortunately, because of the recording error, I have no idea. That is the interesting part about that deck, is if things are not going too well, or if he can't get the monsters to really keep up, he can just transition very quickly to a Burn package to be able to seal games. I saw him do it a lot during the event. Another 5. Blazer's coming back up. The question is Durand going to have some kind of response to it? And then a Glinda. Does he have a response to the playing of Glinda? If so, now is the time to do it. Otherwise, even if he tries to bounce the Blazer, he'll just sacrifice the Glinda. Plus, he can make the Blazer unblockable now. I think Durand is thinking about it. He does decide to let it go through, so he's going to take that 1100 damage to the face. There's nothing much he could really do at that point in terms of stopping the attack. During the end of turn, it looks like he's going to use Duel of Truth to take out that Glinda, essentially forcing Yang to banish it to negate the spell or just take the damage. Those cards need to get removed. Yep. So this gives Chris kind of an opening in the fact that his opponent is tapped out and he's got 1600 damage on board. The question is it just enough to... Oh, with a second Blazer... Is that going to be enough to seal the game? Yeah, it is. So we're going to go ahead and transition to game 2. So here we are, game 2. You got that life up there now that we're starting with everybody else. I would imagine Yang is probably going to go first. Tinkerbell comes out, a very common first turn play for Grimm decks. Durand is going to get that Hearth's Core and play himself a March Hare, a very common turn 1 play for Odd Grimm. So we see that Glinda come out, so he wants to make sure to get that extra damage in right now, so he doesn't have to worry about spell cancels later, as well as being able to get his opponent down to that burn range faster, making that Tinkerbell unblockable, and a 400, taking Durand down to 36. See a Cheshire Cat from Durand, probably hoping to possibly draw into a spell of some kind. And using that Quick Thunder to deal with the Glinda. And then, very interesting play from Chris to swing at Yang as opposed to taking out that Tinkerbell. But again, he's probably thinking that with the Cheshire Cat on board, he's not too worried about that Tinkerbell going through. So he's just going to go ahead and try and get in the extra damage. Cheshire Cat from Yang. Grimm's favorite card. Ooh, a Split Heaven and Earth. Very interesting to see Yang still playing that, despite the fact that Odd Grimm does not run that many dual stones. Game 2, that usually typically gets sided out, so it's very interesting to see. That is a hand full of burn on Yang's side of things. There's another 400 damage that looks like Durand is going to take. Yep, bringing him down to 32. And then another quick 700 from Purifying Fire, taking him down to a 25. So suddenly, 400 damage turned into 1100. Very, very quick damage coming out there. Quickly taking him down to almost half health. Another Cheshire Cat. Looks like an Etna and a Blazer got drawn. Blazer's not really helpful right now, so he's just going to put it back on top. Another Thunder. Now he's going to deal with that Tinkerbell. He doesn't want to have to worry about it later. And playing his own Tinkerbell. Trying to get that 500 damage in. Should reveal that top card of his deck for the attack. Because of March Hare's effect. Didn't happen though. I don't know why. Maybe I just missed it. Or Yang is trustworthy enough to just believe that the card he set on top with Cheshire was odd. Another 700 damage from Purifying Fire, putting Chris down below half health. Man, that is a rough spot for Chris to be in, and just simply passing from there. All 4 of Durand's dual stones are now up. Ran 4 in the deck. We see that Glinda choosing to make, looks like possibly making the March Hare unblockable. I don't know exactly what he decides to do there. He does. He goes ahead and makes the March Hare unblockable for 500 damage. And then decides to block it with the Cheshire Cat. Again, Chris should have revealed this card of his deck for that attack. It's a mandatory trigger. I don't know why he didn't. Again, probably just caught up in the moment. But I'm surprised again that, I mean, while the aggressive play is going on pretty well for Chris, for Durand right now, I don't know why he didn't make the Tinkerbell unblockable to get 1,000 damage as opposed to 500. Either way, he was probably going to take the block from a Cheshire Cat, but he could have closed the gap a little bit more by swinging in with Tinkerbell. See that 500 damage come out from a Thunder, and looks like Durand is thinking about whether or not he wants to use the Glinda to cancel it. So we'll have to see. His opponent would be untapping, so he would be able to cancel it successfully, but I don't really know if that's effective, because his opponent would just be untapping then, maybe something worse. So he'd go ahead and decides to take the 500, putting Durand to 13 to Yang's 25. Ooh, Almerius pops up on Yang's side. He's going to be able to start giving things flying if he needs to. I don't really know how effective, how much he utilizes that, but it's a light source, at best, and at worst, it's free flying. Thinking about whether or not to cancel that rapid decay on the Tinkerbell, decides to go ahead and let it go through. Two mana. A split Heaven and Earth, which is going to deal 12. Oh, he's thinking about it. Maybe not. He knows that Glinda is there, so there's going to be the cancel come out, and he's debating whether or not he wants to go down to 0 mana. He go ahead and decides to commit to it, knowing that cancel is going to come out probably from Durand. We'll put Durand at 100 life to Yang's 22. It's debating whether or not Chris thinks he has what it takes to survive at 1 life. So let's see here. This is a big decision. This could be the decision of the game for Durand. If he cancels, his opponent can still pay the 2 mana, but it would leave him tapped out with Durand at 100 mana. But if he decides to take it, then his opponent has a Thunder, then he'll be able to cancel it successfully. He decides to hedge his bet and take the hit from the Split Heaven, putting him at 1 life. 100 life to 2200 life. This is a very tight game right now. And that's Yang passes to him. So Durand is thinking about whether or not what he wants to do with his free mana before he untaps. Probably trying to get some Hunters in Black Forest with some Grimm searches. Yep, there's a Grimm pitch. I can imagine we're going to see a Hunter in Black Forest because he needs to close this gap. He knows his opponent plays Burn. He knows he's sitting at 100 life. He needs to try to close the gap this turn, especially to the point of possibly even putting his opponent at 300 life to make us another Split Heaven and Earth worthless. We've seen a lot of burn spells from Yang, so I don't know. I don't really know what's gonna happen here. Seeing a Thunder come out from a Grimm pitch. I would assume he's also trying to search for an Oz. Wait, I don't know what just happened. We saw a Grimm search, but suddenly we see a Thunder come out. I don't know what just happened. Whether or not Chris thought he was playing an Oz. Oh, I think he caught his mistake there. I think he realized that he wasn't playing an Oz, he was playing a search. Yeah, I think he might have gotten mixed up between whether or not he was searching for a 1-drop spell with Oz the Great Magician or a Resonator with Grimm Pitch. He caught his mistake, though, so he goes back into his deck, fixes up a mistake because the deck was already randomized, grabs that Hunter in Black Forest off the search. I see a Little Dread, Fake Red Moon. Sitting at 5 mana. I see a Thunder in his hand. I don't know why he didn't cast that during the standby time, during the draw time. A Hunter in Black Forest, a Little Dread, the Fake Red Moon, looks like a Blazer. Taking that 500 damage. Throwing in another 500. I don't think it's going to be possible to close the gap at this point. A thunder during the recharge. I'll explain what I'm seeing here in a second, or what I think could have happened here. Well, because I think there was a play that could have been made, but we'll have to see what Chris is thinking. He's got a lot of mana up, got plenty of options. He's got that Blazer, but I've only had 100 more mana. Or if that is a Blazer, I might be seeing it wrong. Plays the Hunter, swings in for that 300 damage, putting Yang down to 900. Unfortunately, having to pass at that point. Ooh, and the top deck from Yang was almost essentially exactly what it needed. It looks like a Telefairy Tale. Let's see if he does what I think he's gonna do. So yeah, he's gonna tap 3. Maybe. He's gonna tap 3. Right there. To play Telefairy Tale. Durand is gonna have to vanish with Glinda. He decides to let that go through. Let the cancel go through. No, he decides to go ahead and pay for the spell cancel anyway. Grabs an Oz and then grabs a Thunder with the Oz because the enter effect. So what could have happened from Chris actually is he could have played the Thunder to take that 500 damage during the draw phase, and then he could have used Little Dread by paying all of his mana to actually give Little Dread swiftness and be able to swing in, and that could have closed the game out. But it's been a long day, round 6, most of the rounds went to time, so definitely don't fault him for not necessarily seeing that. It was a long, very, very long day, but it's still a very well played game either way. So moving into game 3, Durand is going to be going first. Again, we see that Glinda. I think Durand probably sided into more Glindas because typically the deck only runs 1, so I would not expect to see it that often. An early game Cheshire Cat. Very kind of odd to see, especially since he had that Hunter in Black Forest in his hand. Did not see that early game damage, but Durand's probably got an idea, and let's just trade Cheshire Cats all day. Cats on cats on cats was the theme of this Saturday's game event. There's that first Hunter in Black Forest. There's the second one. Yang lets both of those attacks go through. Oh, Durand's thinking about whether or not he wants to even attack with the second one, maybe leaving it open, but decides to go ahead and do it. And Yang says okay, takes the extra 300 damage. So 40 for Durand and 34 for Yang. A Hunter in Black Forest. Durand is thinking about whether or not he wants to block that with his own Cheshire Cat. Go ahead and chooses to take it, and then a second Hunter in Black Forest comes out, and at that point Chris decides to block. Pretty good idea, forcing his opponent to be kind of tapped down while still staying up on life, especially against a burn deck. Hitting another stone for Durand. Glinda, there it is, making one of those hunters in Black Forest unblockable. Gets that extra damage in, serves this spell cancel work, slowing down Yang's tempo for next turn. Ooh, I see a rapid decay though, that's not ideal for Durand. It's the penalty for running primarily 1s and 2s. Deal with a lot of rapid decays. Causes quite a few problems. The blockable Hunter in Black Forest does indeed get blocked. Meanwhile, Yang is going to have to take the free 300 damage from the unblockable Hunter. So we see that Rapid Decay come out to deal with that Glinda. Very common. And Yang remembering to untap his resonators. Again, very long day. People were starting to kind of forget that they had creatures on the board. Durand is going to take off 600 of that. And then take another 700. Man, that has been a very common play from Yang, is to deal that extra damage, trying to bait out all those spells to tap his opponent out. And then just throwing that burn in to just add insult to the injury. It's kind of been a game of who can swing for more faster, with both opponents leaving themselves very open to the retaliation of their opponent. Thunder come out take out one of those hunters. One of the really important things to note when you're playing this game is the fact that you can play instant spell speeds before you untap. One of the things I've noticed from both players is sometimes a suboptimal play on that pre-draw or pre-recovery phase with stones. Just having a play that they could play for free essentially, because they're going to be able to untap immediately after, and just deciding to pass on that, putting themselves to having to limit their plays in the main phase because they're out of mana. I see 3. I see a Fairy Tale. Yep, Fairy Tale from Grimm, from Yang on the right. Probably grabbing a Hamlin, I could imagine. Possibly an Oz to get a search deck. Ooh, yeah. Playing the Oz while he has the chance. There's no real big threats right now for him to have to worry about locking. He doesn't want a repeat of game 1 where it just kept getting bounced. So grabbing that quick Thunder. With his little tap to no cut during the draw, or at the end of Yang's turn, seeing that bouncing of the Oz. Not the optimal play for the bounce because of the fact that now he'll get essentially get an extra search out of that. But sometimes you just gotta clear the way, and Durand knows it, especially since he's gonna be drawing into a Blazer. He needs to make sure that Blazer can get in and get that 1100 damage taken care of. Swinging in for the 300. Now Yang's in a difficult position here because I see his Crown and Punishment, and a Thunder. So he can either waste the Thunder to not take the 300 damage, or take all the damage and then use Crime and Punishment to negate the Blazer, essentially destroy the Blazer. Unfortunately, that means just Blazer's going to come back next turn, but it still clears the way to deal with other cards later, to be able to potentially establish blockers. But he decides to use the Thunder and then take the 1100 from the Blazer. At this point, Durand's actually in a pretty good place. Blazer's going to be able to always kind of keep coming back. Durand is going to be able to start playing Blazers while still having mana for spells. Really, really good place for him to be as we move into the kind of second half of this game. Looks like we're going to see possibly another Fairy Tale. Yeah, this is probably the other reason why he decided not to use Crime and Punishment, because he knew that he was going to play Fairy Tale next turn and grab that Hamlin's Pied Piper, just to go ahead and lock down Blazer while he can. I feel like we're going to be experiencing some kind of lockdown train from either player. Whenever a Piper hits the board in a Grimm mirror, usually we're going to get to a point where people are just going to start locking each other down. Now remember, as I said, Durand is going to be going into 6 mana, potentially leaving him open to be able to play a bounce spell and a Blazer. But now we have a Cheshire Cat coming up, so one Blazer is not going to cut it. Double Cheshire Cat from Yang. He really, really wants to draw in. Probably wanted to keep that card he put on top. Yep, there's that second Blazer, like I said. He's going to attempt to swing in. He's going to block with the Cheshire Cat, which is not going to get shuffled. It's going to get removed from the game. And then he decides, I think Durand is going to decide to pass. Fairy Tale is also going to be removed. Just kind of recouping. Just reminds me of the Underworld Stalker days back from Kajudo. People forgetting that stuff gets removed. It happens. It's no big deal. It's repairable. Looks like then Durand's going to go ahead and wait. He knows that Hamlin's just going to get recast if he bounces it back to his hand right now. So he decides to go ahead and wait till it can do the most work. Unfortunately, puts him at a risky spot, because if his opponent has a Glinda, he might have to deal with that issue, and he only has the 1 mana up. Looks like Yang does have 2 Glindas. Ooh. Not ideal. Very solid play from both of these players here in the final round of Caturday before cutting to top 8. The winner of this is going to get to go to the top 8. So the stakes are pretty high for both of these players to maximize. Yep, like I said, there comes that Glinda. Durand knows that now is his chance, so before Glinda resolves, he's going to go ahead and bounce that Hamlin back to his hand, freeing up both of those Blazers. Very solid play. Forgetting once again to remove that Dreams of Wonderland from the game, but it is what it is. And see, now Yang's going to try and kind of shore up his defenses, since he knows he's going to have to deal with 2 Blazers next turn. Again, I think I saw Split Heaven and Earth. Very interesting to see being kept for this matchup. but Yang knows that he was able to win. He was able to put Durand in a very tight spot with that, so he's probably hoping to replicate that from game 2 into game 3. One quick 500 damage against Durand with that Thunder. Wants to kind of close the gap while he can. Just instant 500. And then using his last 2 mana to shore up his defenses even more. Double Glinda gives him 2 chances to be able to cancel whatever Durand might be able to throw at him next turn. And then with no more mana, Durand is going to draw into that Oz. Now I don't see quite what Chris has at his hand. He knows that that double Glinda being what it is, and the 2 unblockable, two untargetable Cheshire Cats. Spells right now are not his biggest friend. Looks like he also has a possible Tinkerbell in his hand. Looks like Tinkerbell, Alice in Dreams of Wonderland, and an Oz. Tinkerbell at this point is essentially dead, so if there was going to be a target for a Grimm search, that would probably be my go. He wants to be able to do the most potency damage with those 2 Blazers. There's no way, unfortunately, for him to completely lock down the board, because Cheshire Cat's untargetable. This is one of those times where darkness cards come in handy, but no such luck for Grimm decks. So we are going to see that Grimm pitch. Going to see that Tinkerbell go away. If I was in this position, I don't want to draw into spells. I don't want to worry about it. I've already got Blazers on the field. Hunter in Black Forest isn't going to help me much. So I think probably something to lock down the play. So Etna, especially with the high amount of mana that he still has left. I don't believe Durand was playing any Pied Pipers of Hamlet, but maybe he sided into them. But yep, he's going to grab the Etna. That'll allow him to lock down both of the Glindas this turn, forcing Yang to block with both those Cheshire Cats and clearing the board. Very clutch card right now. That being said, he knows that there is a Hamlet in Yang's hand, if he can remember that. But you know, Hamlet's not instant speed, so we'll have to see how this goes. Making sure he has the right amount of mana. He needs to spend 5 mana to lock down both with Etna's ability. That's the nice thing about Etna. For the same cost as a Hamlet, you can permanently lock down 2 creatures on enter. Pretty solid card. And like I said, he's going to have to waste those 2 Cheshire Cats with the free blocks. Now I think he's debating whether or not to swing in, because he wants to possibly be able to block with the other one, or maybe even control where Yang is going to spend his Piper, but I don't know. He's going to go ahead and swing in, making that second Cheshire Cat get removed from the game, and then passing to Yang. So Yang is going to be going to 7 mana this turn. It's the interesting thing about Grimms is you're always going to be tapping in for mana. Quick reminder that those Glindas should be locked down. I think, again, long day. Durand didn't quite notice it right off the top. Yep, Tyson there. Don't forget that Etna has locked them down. I like to use counters, but it is what it is. So while that hardcast Hamlin from Yang's hand would be great right now to be able to lock down one of those blazers, a Telefairy Tail would be more ideal because he'd have more mana up. I just don't know if he has one in his hand. A quick, he's gonna throw. Oh, it looks like he threw away the Pied Piper of Hamlin with his own Grimm pitch. Are we gonna see an Etna face off? That's quite possible, I think. It'd be an optimal play for Yang, again, in that same sense of he has two creatures that he really needs to lock down right now. I can definitely see that being a play. And it would still leave him with 1 mana up. Or he could potentially tap everything and lock down the whole field, which could also be a really good play, but who knows what Durand has lined up. Does decide to grab the Etna. Very nice throw to put it right into play there. He does. He spends all 6 to do a triple lock. It's going to be the time of the cancels, time of the lockdowns. Durand is going to also now be going to 7 mana. He's got that Oz. He's got looks like a Dreams of Wonderland. Problem is, those Glindas are never really dead for spell options. One blue coming out for a Cheshire Cat. Looks like a Tinkerbell and an Oz. Decides to grab the Tinkerbell. Using those non-dual stones to maximize his mana plays. Pitches the Tinkerbell. Okay, so he wanted the Fairy Tale so that he could save that Oz that he has in his hand, and still get a search out. Grabbing another Etna. Just like back in the days where everyone was playing Hamlin's Pied Piper and you have Piper trains, now we have Etna trains, where people just, whoever plays Etna last wins. So we'll see if Chris decides to, yep, he's just doing a quick one cast there. I almost would have played the Tinkerbell, just being an 800, and pitched the Grimm, to be honest, because spells right now are not as effective. Having another big creature that is going to be able to possibly deal with Etna if he tries to attack with Etna. Or maybe being able to play both. Playing both Oz and Tinkerbell. Suddenly having something that can trade with Piper if need be. So we see a lot of mana coming up. So even if he does use that split Heaven and Earth right now, it's not going to help him at all because he's going to take 1500 damage. Hamlin's Pied Piper to lock down Etna. Just whoever locks down last wins. So it's off screen there, but he did play an Oz the Great Magician to search for that Thunder. Probably hoping at this point that he can possibly just burn Chris to death. A Grimm pitch, getting rid of that March Hare. And Cancers for Blazer. Little Cancers for Little Dread either, unfortunately. She is a nightmare. Not a fairy tale. No real point in, there's a second Little Dread. Yeah, I figured that got sided. Does he have the third Etna is the question, and it does not look like it. So he grows ahead and grabs the Cheshire Cat. This is a hard position for Chris to be in, because now he's got to deal with both spell cancels and a Piper that can continue to lock things down, and the Etna. Essentially, all of his attack options are currently locked. He's got that last little bit of damage. He knows that Yang has a Thunder. Very, very tight spot. Could potentially use the 5 mana to bounce Etna. Part of me thinks that playing a Cheshire Cat and then to be able to have the blockers up and then wasting and then not being afraid to use the 5 mana on a bounce of that Etna could really turn the game around for Durand, but we'll have to see. Uses a Rapid Decay to clear off one of the Glindas. Very good. Getting rid of those Glindas are very, very important. Seeing an Oz. Let's grab a Duel of Truth. He's got to find spot removal somewhere. Possibly hoping to use that next turn to be the answer against Hamlin. Problem is, Durand is quickly approaching not having any mana left, so any spells are going to be able to easily be countered by those Glindas. Try and Duel of Truth with the Piper of Hamlin, which goes through. Very unexpected. Yang must have been more concerned with whatever else Chris had in his hand than that Hamlin. Really, really unexpected play. Or he could have seen that Chris still has 2 mana up. I can't quite tell. Sitting it. Both players sitting it. Oh yeah, Chris is sitting it. No. Yeah, both players sitting at 8 mana. So even if he did cancel, that spell would have gone through. So probably a better idea from Yang to just go ahead and let that happen. So nothing's gonna get locked down. So we see 2. Oh, to give it flying. You see 2 to give Oz flying, guaranteeing that 600 damage is coming through, and then the bounce is gonna happen off of the attempt to bounce is going to happen off the attempt of the Dreams Wonderland, and that's where we're going to see the cancel. And then we see a Split Heaven and Earth, and then a Thunder, leaving. It'll leave Shang with literally 200 life, but that will take the game for Yang, and Yang's going to go into top 8. So there you have it, guys. It's a very close match going to game 3. Odd Grimm versus Bloody Burn Grimm, red-white. With Yang taking it. So go ahead and tune back in tomorrow. We're going to have the top 8 match between myself and Josh. Go ahead, like, comment, and subscribe. Tell me what you thought about the matchup, what you would like to see different, what plays you could have seen. And as always, guys, until next time, this is DMO73 signing off.